Hello, everyone. My name is Bhante Wade Puripanyo, here at Empty Cloud Monastery for our regular Wednesday night live stream. And I'm here with Ayawada, just off camera, and three lay residents, three people taking advantage of the overnight lay residency program to deepen their practice in the monastery, living by the monastery schedule, and having more access to teachers and doing the morning and evening worship services and group sits with us. So welcome to them. And I have an announcement that Bhante Sudaso returned as planned on Monday, arriving Monday evening. And so he is back, much to the pleasure of everyone here. And if you have an opportunity to come in and welcome him back and pay your respects, I'm sure you'd be delighted to see all his old friends coming into the monastery. And probably everyone has heard that the purchase of the land is complete for Lena Pawana Monastery, a bhikkhu and bhikkhuni monastery in Italy, the first bhikkhuni monastery in Italy, actually. So it's a big milestone for the Buddha Sasana in the West, and an important time in the history of Empty Cloud Monastery as well. Congratulations all around. We have several people sending in their Anjalis. Good to see everyone. So let's see. Last Wednesday night I did a talk on how to attain Sotapanna, part 1, and so I talked off the cuff about the path to attaining Sotapanna. Hello, Mary is with us. Good to see her typing in. It was a Salapuja was 2 Sundays ago, and so started talking about Anya Kundanya, attaining Sotapanna, and how did he do it? Especially hearing just one talk, the talk on the Four Noble Truths, how did he attain Sotapanna? And so that was last Wednesday evening. The Sunday before, we had the Asala Puja celebration here, the worship day of the month of Asala, in celebration of the Buddha delivering his first sermon, that on the Four Noble Truths, and Anya Kundanya attaining Sotapanna. And then Friday before that, in the morning, I talked about Asala Puja and the development of Parami, again in reference to Anya Kundanya, and the 2 chief disciples of the Buddha, the Venerable Sariputta and Mahamoggallana. So those talks are up on the Empty Cloud YouTube channel, as well as all the live streams stored there. There were some questions asked during the live stream last week that I didn't get to in the course of the talk. And so perhaps I'll answer some of those this evening. First, I'd like us to do a little bit of meditation. We'll start out with a guided meditation. So I encourage everyone to adopt a meditation posture, whether it's sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair or standing or even lying down. You can meditate in any of the postures. Could be walking. It'd be hard to do, I think, probably with the live stream, unless you're listening on headphones or have it on a loud enough speakers, I suppose, or something like this. Probably this guided meditation will be most appropriate for those who are stationary. Considering how I usually do guided meditations. For those of you who Or sitting on the floor. It's quite traditional to do so. The easiest way, for those of you who are new to sitting on the floor, the easiest way to sit in a cross-legged position on the floor, which is very good for stability, and so for sitting for a while in a comfortable position, the easiest way is to sit with one leg in front of the other. Let me see if I can get this up on the screen here. So if we sit with one leg in front of the other, so that they're not touching, this is the easiest way, as it reduces the likelihood of pain developing or discomfort as the legs touch. All right, then I would like you to imagine that you have a cord attached to the top of your head, and it stretches up to the ceiling or up into the sky, gently lifting you into an upright position. You may feel your head rise slightly and your neck straighten a little bit. And then the spine and the upper back straightening up a little bit as that cord gently lifts us into an upright position. And then further down in the middle of the back, we feel it straighten just a little bit. And then the lower back, we can allow to curve in just a little bit, which is very natural for the spine. In the lower back. And then we gently bring our awareness up, let it glide up through the back and the neck, up to the head again, all the way up to the crown of the head. And experience the sensations all the way up in the crown of the head. And by the way, I forgot to mention that you may close your eyes. This is very conducive for experiencing the inner world. But if you find it more comfortable or less distracting to leave them open just a little bit, maybe looking in an unfocused way at the floor, that's also okay. All right. Now if we pay attention to the crown of the head again, and just see how it feels. If you have any difficulty feeling, with your sense of feeling, the crown of the head, you can place a hand on top, just to help bring your awareness there, feeling the contact of the hand with the crown of the head. And then beneath that, inside, experience how it feels and allow it to relax. We'll linger there for a few more moments, experiencing the crown of the head and allowing any tension to ease out. All right. Now we'll glide down to the forehead and see how the forehead feels. Just gently pay attention to the sensations in the forehead and allow it to relax. If the mind wanders, we simply return to these sensations in the forehead and allow the forehead to relax. All right. Now we're going to pay attention to the temples, or one temple or the other. And see how they feel. And allow them to relax too. We'll dwell there for just a few more moments, experiencing the temples, and allow any tension there to dissipate. And now we'll pay attention to the eyes. Gently being aware of how they feel. And allowing them to relax. All right. Now we'll glide down to the cheeks and the area around the nose and the mouth and the jaw. And feel this lower half of the face. Notice if there is any tension there. And and allow it to relax. Just let any tension ease out. As you are gently aware of it. Dwelling there in the lower half of the face. All right. Next, we'll move around to the back of the head and the neck and the shoulders. Use your awareness in these areas, simply paying attention to how they feel, seeing if there is any tension there, and allowing those areas to relax. You might imagine the muscles in those areas the back of the head, the neck, and the shoulders, and the throat as well. Try to be aware of how they feel. And allow them to relax. You can allow the shoulders to droop a little bit. As they relax, and then we'll glide down to the chest for what will be the last stage of this body scan. phase of the meditation. And notice how the chest feels. And allow it to relax too. And we'll test our awareness a little bit. See if you can move your awareness to feel the upper right hand area of your chest. The small area of the chest in the upper right hand area. And allow that area to relax. And then up to that space between the collarbone on the right and the shoulder, that narrow space between the collarbone and the shoulder on the right hand side. And see how it feels too. And allow it to relax. And now we'll move over to the left side. Also that muscle between the collarbone and the shoulder. If you have trouble feeling that space, you can touch it, perhaps with a finger, to help bring your awareness there. And then feel inside and feel the muscle with your awareness. And allow any tension there to dissipate. All right. Now let's take one or two deep breaths and feel it. Feel the breaths in the chest. Breathing in deeply, and then allowing the breath to go out. And feeling the chest rise and fall. And then again. And then center your awareness there in the middle of the chest where you feel the breath rising and descending, and allow it to fall into a natural rhythm. And you might be able to picture it there as well. As you feel it passing up and down through the chest. And then right there in the middle of the chest, I would like you to imagine your spiritual heart. And imagine it coming to a rest there, relaxing into that space. With your sense of feeling, and you can picture it too, like a flock of butterflies floating down and fluttering, coming to a rest. There in the chest, as we're all coming home. As our spiritual hearts come back to rest in that space, and our awareness and the breath and the heart mingle there. And with your sense of feeling, experience whichever you like there, whichever feels more comfortable. The heart or the breath or both. And harmonize your awareness there with it. And if you like, you can regulate your breathing to help with the harmony. And stay with that as best you can. While I give advice to those who may be feeling sleepy, if that's not you, just stay with this harmony. But if you are feeling sleepy or drowsy, perhaps open the eyes a little bit and let some light in. Switch on a light if you need to. And maybe take a few deeper breaths and be conscious of wanting to be more alert. And then see if you can try again to harmonize your awareness with the heart or the breath or both. All right. Now we'll try to develop our mindfulness, our keen attention a little bit more now by counting. And so we'll focus more now on the breath. And as the breath comes in, we'll count 1. As it goes out, we'll count 2. And as it comes in again, we'll count 3. And so on up to 10. Okay, let's start. All right. Now, if you've reached 10, or if you haven't, that's all right. We'll simply begin again with 1 on the in-breath and 2 on the out-breath, 3 on the in-breath, and so on up to 10 again. And now we'll do one last set of 10. Starting over again at 1. All right. Now I'd like to ask you to try to keep your awareness with the breath, but also now we're going to imagine there in the chest, the ribs, the rib cage surrounding the breath. Just how you know it, just try to imagine the rib cage, picturing it as you continue to be aware of the breath. With the breath flowing up and down, imagine the bone going down the front middle of the chest, and then the ribs curving out from it, leading around behind. And then we'll simply allow that image to dissipate and allow our awareness to rest again on the sensation of the breath in the middle of the chest. And if we're flustered or at all restless, we can be with it there. Just experience it with our awareness. and allow it to relax, and then come back to the breath. We just settled in there. Allowing the breath to find its natural rhythm. Just for a few more moments. As we relax, gently aware of this breathing. And feeling the rise and fall of the chest. Okay. I'm going to draw the meditation to a close. By ringing the bell. So I'd like to ask you to be aware of the sound as it begins and as it changes and as it comes to an end, as it fades away. Then we can very mindfully raise our hands and join them palm to palm in front of our hearts out of gratitude and respect for the meditation. We feel the palms touching, and we feel these emotions in the heart. Then we can slowly and mindfully allow the hands to return to our laps or to our knees. And slowly open our eyes, noticing what we see very mindfully. And noticing how we feel. Are we calmer? Are we clearer than when we started? And we can then mindfully consider changing our posture. Be aware of any intention to do so mindfully, and then we can slowly, step by step, adjust our posture as necessary. All right. So now I think I'll share some thoughts on the meditation that we did, but perhaps start out with some of the questions from last week. See how the Spirit moves me. I'll start off with a traditional Namo Tassa and homage to the Buddha. I'd like to ask, if I may, that you maintain your awareness with an aspect of the meditation that seemed to be conducive for awareness, such as the breath or an area of the body or the heart itself, or another object of awareness that works well for you to maintain your mindfulness. And then as I speak, allow the words to come in as seems suitable. Allow to filter in whatever the heart feels may be useful. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddha Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. This is a traditional statement of homage to the Holy Lord Buddha. Homage to the blessed, noble, perfectly self-enlightened one. Followed by a homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami, which means that I render homage to the Buddha and to his teachings, which explain the methodology by which he attained enlightenment, and reduced suffering and increased pleasure, and how he taught so many people and heavenly beings how to improve their situations. And the Sangha being his community of disciples who attained stages of sainthood. If we think back to this meditation we've done, we practiced some grounding and relaxation through a method of what might be called body scan, commonly known as body scan, becoming aware of the sensations in the body and allowing them to relax. First comes the mindfulness and the awareness, and then the possibility of relaxing, of allowing tension to ease out. And then we imagine the heart relaxing into its home in the chest. Another step in grounding, in relaxation, with the imagery of a flock of butterflies descending and coming to rest there. Locating that point first with the breath rising and descending through the middle of the chest. And then after some time, we honed our awareness by counting the breath. The counting being a method of helping to simply keep the mind with the breath. Having become calmer in this way and more grounded, and then honing our mindfulness, I asked us to imagine the Imagine the rib cage, a step that might have taken some of you by surprise. Simply an aspect of meditation we find in the scriptures and handed down to us over the millennia by the meditation masters. This awareness of the parts of the body with mindfulness, having made the mind calm and more grounded and honing our awareness, then the heart can more thoroughly understand aspects of reality, can more clearly see them and understand them. And I referred to the heart coming home to the chest. And of course, the heart and this body are our home in samsara, this round of rebirths. And the pathway to attaining enlightenment, awakening, and going beyond the round of rebirths and ending all suffering is to know in the present this body and mind. And so perhaps some of us felt something on a deeper level, an awareness or a reaction in the heart to this imagining of the ribcage as it became more familiar with it. This is a way that we can develop our wisdom parami, that is, our perfection as it's usually translated. Sometimes I also call it the spiritual virtue of wisdom. Which is very supportive of our spiritual aspirations. If the mind is actually very united and focused, it can suffice to attain insight knowledge as well. Insight proper. So when we find ourselves in meditation, coming to a place where we're calm and focused, this is one tack we can take. Imagining a part of the body, for example. Or contemplating the 5 subjects of frequent recollection given to us by the Buddha. Or contemplating the impermanence or unsatisfactory or suffering nature of something that's important to us, something that we're attached to or that's bothering us. And it's not self-nature. Being impermanent and coming to necessarily to cessation in the future, it can't be us or ours. And it cannot be ultimately satisfied. This is a way to help the heart let go. Or, if we like, we can continue developing our focus, trying to harmonize more closely the awareness with the breath. Seeing if we can become one with the breath, seeing if we can be the breath. These are ways of speaking, trying to convey the idea of the experience, trying to attain vitaka, as is said in the scriptures, the initial application of mind. We gently try to do this and see if we can gently, and if not, that's okay, and we simply work on developing our continuous mindfulness. Or we can transition to another meditation style, such as loving kindness or recollection of good things we have done. If they seem appropriate, these can be quite uplifting, very nourishing to the heart, and also help us let go if there are any feelings of animosity or anxiety or regret, for example, in the heart. Those are some words about the meditation style. So perhaps I'll look into some of the questions that came up last week. I happened to notice that there were questions afterward, and some of them looked very interesting, and so I went back to the YouTube channel and brought them up so I could bring them to this and see if I could answer them. I see at least some of the people who were on last week are here again. And I think everyone, though, could probably benefit from these. One question was, in terms of merit, where does the practice of Brahma-vihara meditation fall in terms of the level of merit one can make? How much merit is there in Brahma-vihara's meditation compared to other forms of goodness? There's a scripture where the Buddha is talking to the householder Anathapindika, the feeder of the poor, a very generous man. He gave to the poor very generously. And he also gave the very first park to the Buddha. And he was a very loyal and generous supporter of the Buddha and his Sangha. And the Buddha was telling him about merit, and he said to Anathapindika that even if you give away 84,000 of gold and silver over the course of an entire year, the merit doesn't match the merit of undertaking the 5 precepts. The merit of undertaking the 5 precepts is even greater. And then he said, as great a merit as this is, the merit of practicing loving kindness meditation, for just as long as it takes to milk a cow, is even greater. And they say that it takes about 15 minutes to milk a cow. This is what I've read. And then, as great a merit as this is, even greater is the merit of perceiving impermanence for just the duration of a finger snap of time. These are the 4 kinds of merit that the Buddha told Anathapindika about. The first one, giving away 84,000 of gold and silver over the course of a year. T.W. Rhys Davids, I remember reading him in the introduction to one of his works of translation of the Buddhist scriptures, said that the number 84,000 was often used in ancient India simply to mean a very large number, sort of like if we say millions in modern America. So we might say, even if you give away millions in gold and silver over the course of an entire year, it does not match the merit of undertaking the 5 precepts. Personally, I think it must also mean following the 5 precepts. And then even greater is the merit of practicing loving kindness meditation for 15 minutes, as long as it takes to milk a cow. And in another sutta, the Buddha tells about his own practice of loving kindness in the past as a hermit. He tells a group of bhikkhus, a group of monks that is, he says, monks, don't be afraid of merit, for merit is another word for pleasure. He says in the distant past, he'd been a hermit practicing loving kindness meditation for 7 years in seclusion. And when he died, he was reborn as the great Brahma, a very high divinity up in the heavens, who lives constantly experiencing rapture, has no interest in sense pleasures because his rapture is so delicious, living there for an extremely long time. As it says in the scriptures, all-knowing and all-seeing. He lives there for an entire eon. And the Buddha said that he was reborn as this great Brahma 7 times in a row. And then after the 7 times of being the great Brahma, he was reborn as a universal monarch, that is, a ruler over the entire earth by righteous means, loved by everyone on earth, with the perfect queen and fantastically wealthy. So, and then he says he was reborn in this way 7 times, and then many times after that, kings of local areas. And so he's encouraging his monks to practice loving kindness meditations. That group of monks anyway, to practice loving kindness meditation, because it'll bring them a great deal of pleasure. So I was thinking recently, I was talking with someone about the merit of loving kindness meditation, and I was reminded of, I think maybe everyone by now has seen these. A meditation master in Thailand was doing a live stream like this with many locations overseas, and he called up a video of a person being reunited after several years with a lion that they had taken care of as a cub. I can't remember the circumstances. The cub apparently was orphaned or was sick or something like this, and she had taken care of it while she was in Africa, and had raised it herself, and then released it into the wild, and returned to the Western country she was from. I think it was America, but I'm not sure that's really right. And she went back to that area after several years, looking for this lion cub, and found it. And this lion came right up to her immediately and raised up on its hind legs and took her in a hug so lovingly. It was amazing to see. So this was a video, I think it was on YouTube, that he played for us all to see. And I've seen another video like this in recent times. A lion coming up to someone who had taken care of it as a cub and wrapping it in a hug, and just, you could see the love. It was so remarkable. And I think this speaks to the merit of loving kindness, that a lion, after years, can still remember the person who took care of it. And even though lions normally would make prey of human beings, instead to be so overcome by love that they would wrap this person in a hug. I think it's just another indication of how much merit there is in the practice of loving kindness. And the other Brahma Viharas, so we also have compassion and sympathetic joy in equanimity. So loving kindness is the wish for the happiness and welfare of oneself and others. Compassion, the wish that oneself and others be free of all suffering. And sympathetic joy, the wish that other beings not be separated from whatever good fortune they have attained, that has come to them. And equanimity, the recognition that all beings are the owners of their actions, both us and all other beings. And whatever we do, whether for good or for ill, of that will be the heir. And I can't speak to the amount of merit of these, but I personally, I assume there'll be similar merit to loving kindness. And each has their place. You use them at different times or different situations. Or as a kamatana, that is a continuous meditation practice, loving kindness can then lead to the development of compassion practice, and so on, up through equanimity. Perhaps those are topics for another time. And then if we look at another question that came in is, what are the benefits of reflecting on the inverse of all things and people who are near and dear to me are subject to change? This is another great question coming in from last week. And so I was talking last week as part of the part of the talk about attaining sotapanna. I was talking about the 5 subjects for frequent recollection as a means of developing wisdom parami. And The first one is I am subject to aging. I have not gone beyond getting old. The second is that I am subject to disease. I have not gone beyond getting sick. The third is that I am subject to dying. I have not gone beyond death. The fourth is that everything that is dear and pleasing to me will change and will be separated from me. And I noted that actually, as I've read, that it can be translated in inverse. The way the Pali works, you can actually translate it as I will change and become separated from everything that I hold dear. And then the fifth one is that I am the owner of my actions and live dependent on my actions. Whatever I do, whether it's good or bad, of that I'll be the heir. Okay. And so this question relates to the fourth. These, by the way, are the indicated in the scriptures. The Buddha says that these 5 subjects should be recollected frequently by everyone. And so the fourth, everything that is dear and pleasing to me will change and will be separated from me, speaks to the fact that in time, we must necessarily be separated from everything that we have. The exceptions being our parami, and of course we will receive the consequences of our actions. And so we can contemplate, that all of our belongings, for example, all of our relationships and the people in our lives, and situations in our lives, the political system, the customs, etc., the work culture that we work in, the job that we work, and all of our physical possessions, they must all change, and we eventually, one way or another, will be separated from them all. And then another aspect of the contemplation is that we will change. We will change over time as well. And so those things that once were dear and pleasing to us will at some point, is possible that they'll no longer be dear and pleasing to us. And this happens, with relatively small things that aren't so important, the music we love, we later may not enjoy so much. Foods that we find delicious, we later no longer find appetizing. Or we may no longer be able to eat because of our bodily conditions. Perhaps we develop a health condition that prevents us from eating those. Whether we have to go on a particular kind of diet, to lower cholesterol or something like this, or if our mouth stops working properly. Or if our digestion stops working properly. Heard a story recently about a young lady in her 20s who can no longer digest solid food. And so all food is, see if I remember this correctly. She was receiving transfusions, but she could no longer eat physical, solid food via the mouth. And she could not digest it, as I recall, so she had to receive transfusions instead. And so it's quite a sobering reflection for us that our body can change in these ways. And so apparently she will, there are many flavors she'll never experience again. And she's still just in her 20s. And then we may find that we grow in ways or change in ways that make it such that we don't find our career interesting anymore, or a particular job, or even relationships with people we once held dear. And so we may change and we may need to move on. These are some reflections on the impermanence of formations in samsara that we can reflect on. Very worthwhile to reflect on this sort of thing when the mind is calm. So we can meditate for a little while and then bring up one of these subjects contemplate it in these ways. Think about examples we know of from our own lives. I think of these 5 subjects for frequent recollection as aspects of right view that we can see in the here and now. So very pertinent and valuable way to develop wisdom. Right now, if you look at some of the others. Another question came in. May I ask how to deal with judgments from other people? When a person judges me harshly, I really want to take revenge and judge back even harsher. Is that valid? Or is there any other way out? Yes. This is quite a common human problem. So people judge us, quite harshly. It seems sometimes, and it's quite a common reaction, rising up from the heart to want to reciprocate, judge them right back. Certainly we can find a flaw with them. You want to say, what do you think? You're perfect or something? And no doubt, if you know them, you can find some flaw. You can criticize them for, and it's interesting to watch over time as you pay attention how readily this comes up. How immediately it comes up. Later on, we may still be stewing over this, and we're thinking about, I should have said this or I should have said that. But is it valid? And so, according to the scriptures, the Buddha said that harsh speech is unskillful, meaning that it always, in the long run, leads to suffering. The net result will be suffering, even if we experience some kind of pleasure or satisfaction, or if so, there's some result, perhaps in the near term or the middle term, or even eventually, that in the long run, over time, we'll see that the end result, sometimes we see it right away, is actually negative for us. And so he said it's never advisable to go down that road. And so this is speaking of speech, harsh speech. And so I think it would apply to anytime we relate our judgments, really, really harshly to other people. And even internally, if we're judging other people harshly, and even if we don't say anything to them, if we think about how that feels, is that pleasant or is it unpleasant? And I think if we become more aware of our inner world over time, meditating, we can see that this kind of thing is unpleasant. It's coming from a place of suffering. We're suffering because of something that somebody said to us or indicated to us harshly, and it brings up these negative emotions, anger and frustration and so on like this, and vindictiveness. And then the thinking about it, the stewing on it can be quite unpleasant. But also the kind of the bad karma of this, even if we keep it to ourselves, is that it kind of perpetuates. This is a mental tendency, and then so the next time this happens, then we'll have a tendency to engage in the same kind of mental habits, giving rise to anger, which is very unpleasant actually, and thinking over and over again about how inappropriate this was, and maybe how can we get revenge on them, and how can we take them down a notch, and all these kinds of things. And over time we see these mental habits are quite unpleasant. And so it's advisable by Buddhist standards actually to for our own welfare and for the welfare of others around us, we try to unwind this kind of thing. We don't feed it. And so one way of working with it is with a meditation like we did this evening, and then we can when we get into a calm place, we can practice loving kindness meditations. It can be very effective. Practicing loving kindness meditation for ourselves, or even starting with somebody completely unrelated, to the situation, perhaps someone we have very positive feelings for, and then for ourselves. And if we find that we're able to keep that kind of caring feeling in the heart, we can share loving kindness also with someone who's judged us harshly. Or if we make the heart calm, we can do a wisdom contemplation that I alluded to earlier, thinking perhaps about the impermanence of this kind of situation, or how unpleasant it is to stew on it, to keep thinking about it, and to reflect on how it's not really us and ours. And we suffer if we latch onto it, if we attach to it, and consider it to really be about me. And it's someone's heart, criticizing me and so on. Sometimes, if we reflect on it, we see it's actually really all about them. And they may be suffering, and maybe that's why they said what they said. Or maybe it's a projection that they have. And finally, we can also, in a calmer time, we can stop and reflect, well, is there any truth in this? Even if maybe they should have said it more nicely, or if maybe if they said it too strongly, one way or another, is there some truth in this, and is there some way we can benefit from it? I just heard something recently attributed to some I think it was the Vedas or the Upanishads or something in the Hindu tradition. And I have to apologize, I don't know the source, but the wisdom in it was so profound, I thought. He said they were talking about what they called the liking disliking monster, which was that because we're so eager to get away from what we dislike and to associate with what we like, we fail to see or to gain any benefits from our experience of what we dislike. So there are many things in life that we dislike and we necessarily will come in contact with. When it comes to harsh judgment, in fact, it says in the scriptures, it says that no one goes unslandered in this life. Eventually, all of us, one way or another, we're going to be slandered, we're going to be judged harshly, we're going to be criticized unfairly. People will even tell nasty lies about us. And this is all normal, really. And in our eagerness to get away from it or to stop it and only experience what we like, we may miss the opportunity to learn some very, very important lessons from that which we dislike. And if we can work with it, if we can see if we can, So I mentioned using our meditation techniques, for example, or reflecting on these different kinds of things in a calmer moment, see is there something in here I can learn from? And even if not from the criticism itself, maybe we can learn from being criticized. You were talking just now about the fourth recollection. Everything that is dear and pleasing to me will change and be separated from me. There's another set of recollections, or a set of dhammas in the scriptures, the 8 worldly winds. I don't think I've ever once been able to remember all 8 of them at the same time. But let's see here. One is gain and loss. That's one pair. Gain and loss. Another one is pain and pleasure. Another one is praise and blame. Okay. And another one is fame and obscurity. So I got all 4. How about that? Okay, this is a banner day. So and so this is about praise and blame. And the Buddha said that these things, these 8 things, these 4 pairs are like winds that blow. They're always changing. They're always changing. And if you make your happiness dependent on the direction of the wind, then you're definitely going to be suffering sometimes. So you don't want to depend on the direction of the wind for your happiness. And when we're experiencing praise, we can reflect on that. When somebody praises, usually it's quite normal to feel really good. You might even get a little bit puffed up about it, feel a little bit proud and this kind of thing. But if we remember with our wisdom that actually this is like the wind, this may be very true. The praise may be very true. The person who's praising you, they may love you forever. But the fact of being praised, the experience of being praised, is like the wind, because it's going to change and it's going to end, and then at some point someone's going to criticize you. The wind's going to blow in the other direction. So this is a contemplation we can do when we're being praised, and when we're being blamed. we can also contemplate this. This is like the wind. It was bound to change direction and come this way, and at some point it's going to change and blow in another direction. These are some thoughts I can share. All right. And then let's see some other questions here. I found this comment. It's not a question; it's a comment. I was talking about generosity in the last talk last week, Wednesday night, and saying how generosity is one of the factors of attaining sotapanna. It's considered a prerequisite of developing a noble eightfold path. Generosity, and I was talking about different ways you can make merit by being generous. And a gentleman wrote in, I have a practice of giving some food to animals outside before I eat in the morning. He says, it is not, although it is not the best field of merit, I feel it helps me be more generous and happier. And so, and I just thought I found that such a nice reflection that this person has instituted this practice. They have this habit, this practice, and they notice that it helps them to feel more generous and happier. And I think that's one test of merit. If you're doing something wholesome and you feel the happiness and you feel that you're growing your spiritual virtue in this way. In this case, the spiritual virtue of generosity. That's a very wonderful thing. And then he went on to mention the hard part for me about practicing the Opposita is that the lunar calendar doesn't line up with the work week. It doesn't matter which day it is. I mentioned this, but in passing in the talk last week, and that is that this person is asking about the observance of the Opposita day, which is in the scriptures also, and it's something the Buddha indicated as an integral part of the lay path. That is the path for lay people. And what it is one day you set aside, according to the ancient lunar calendar in the time of the Buddha, you would set this day aside on the lunar quarters. And so it works out to about once a week by the modern calendar that we use, and in the West. And he said that on that one day you follow the 8 precepts, and you put the day aside for spiritual practice. And he went into great detail about it in a sutta called the Mulu Posita Sutta, which is in the, as I recall, the Anguttara Nikaya. That's right, the Mulu Posita Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, spelled M as in Mary, ULU POSATHA sutta. And in it he tells Lady Visakha, his foremost female lay disciple, about how to observe this day. And again, as he indicated it elsewhere, as an integral part of the lay path. And so back then, it was common for religious traditions, and spiritual seekers to have an Opposita day. That is this religious day. And they timed it to the lunar quarters. That was a common practice. It was customary. And but actually, it isn't necessarily in modern times necessarily to follow that calendar. There's one meditation master in Thailand. He was asking someone who asked him about this question. He asked him in return, well, if you follow the 8 precepts on a day that is not the Opposita day, he says, does that count as the Opposita Sila? And the man said no. And he says, well, but if it's the precepts, is it good? And the man said, well, yes, it is good. And then he says, well, then if you've already found goodness, if you've already hit goodness right on the nose, why do you have to be looking at a calendar? And so you can choose a day that's appropriate for you to follow the precepts that seem suitable for you, and to devote the day to spiritual practice. As it says elsewhere, one of the common blessing chants we do in Theravada Buddhism, any day you do a good thing is a good day. And so you can look at it that way. And I hope you find it to be very rewarding, as I did when I practiced it in lay life. All right. That brings us to 9 o'clock. So the end of the schedule for the live stream. I hope you all found some benefit in it, at least. And I wonder, though, if I neglected something. I neglected to allow anyone here to ask a question. So I'd like to do that. We have 3 lay people who are staying overnight here in the monastery and following the monastery program. So I want to give them a chance to ask a question, as well as Ayawada, if he has any. And Not seeing any questions. Okay, I think everyone's getting a little bit sleepy too. So we'll wrap up the talk and now. And so I'll say to everyone, we have more live streams tomorrow and Friday. And then Saturday evening, we have the regular Dharma program here at Empty Cloud from 6 to 7:30. And then on Sunday as well from 1 to 4. And if you have an opportunity to come in, I hope you will. And I hope you all have a very good evening or a good day if you're not, if it's not nighttime where you are. And I hope you all continue to prosper in the Dhamma.
Andamayam Dhammakataya Sadhukaram Vedamase Sadhu 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 Anumodam.
Best wishes, everyone. Until next time.